Heyo, welcome into the Undrafted and Unqualified Fantasy Football Podcast. I'm Anthony and I'm here with Vinny. Vinny, what do we got today?
Yeah, what's up, everybody? So we're going to be continuing our ranking episodes today. Last episode we did our top 12 quarterbacks for the preseason, and our now we're going to continue with our running backs. So today we're going to have top 24 total, and today we're going to go through the 24 through 13 in our rankings. So the next episode will be 12 to 1. So we're teasing you guys a little bit, but I think there's a lot of value in talking about this 24-13 too, because this is the RB2s that we believe will finish as RB2s this season. So these are our consensus. We each made our own rankings, then put them together to kind of place guys where we both value them equally, I guess, based on our individual rankings. So yeah, it's going to be a fun episode today.
Yeah, I think it's important to note too, like we're doing the top 24 versus top 12 because, quarterbacks, you only have one starting quarterback, whereas running backs and receivers, you're going to have
Yeah.
more. So we'll be doing the same thing with receivers as well. But yeah, we're going to do top 24. We were thinking top 20 and we said, you know what, why don't we give the people the RB1s and RB2s? So we're going
Yeah.
to 24 versus just 20. Before we hop right into the rankings, let's briefly just touch upon a few honorable mentions. I also want to mention, I guess you could call this a little bit of news, but Joe Mixon, we just got some news that his what was it, ankle or foot injury is a lot worse than they originally thought it was going to be. And with all that being said, I think the two of us are both a little worried about where he's going to be. Had that news not broken, he would probably be in both of our top 24 rankings, but you won't see him in this episode. Neither one of us have him in the top 24 as of right now.
Yeah.
Um, don't rule him out completely until we hear more. Let's be real about that. If they're saying, oh, he'll be healthy by week 3, all right, he's probably got to be in that top 24. But with the news that just broke and we're still unsure, he's not going to be in there for us. Just a quick honorable mentions from my rankings that didn't crack our consensus. Aaron Jones, a name to know, right? He's been a PPR machine forever. I think for me, he's just right. He just missed it because of the age, and Jordan Mason is there now. Could be more of a split. And then my RB25, who also didn't crack our rankings, was Caleb Johnson, rookie for the Steelers, also a name to know. Just keep him on the radar as these guys who, they didn't crack our top 24, but they should be mentioned as well.
Yeah. And then an honorable mention for me is Isaiah Pacheco. I had him at 24, I believe, and you had him at 28, correct?
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower.
Yeah, so we were a little split on him. The reason for me having him barely cracking the top 24 is just I know there's been a lot of hype surrounding Brashard Smith, and I'm not really buying into it. I mean, this is a seventh round running back who was a receiver in college, more of a receiving upside for him. But Pacheco was the guy there after the brutal injury he had, and I think there's a lot still left in the tank with him being fully healthy and having a full off season to kind of prepare for the season. So. I think there's some value in him with him in drafts, and I felt that 24 was a good number for him as like a low end RB2.
Mhm. Yeah, so those are quick hitters. Yeah, I think the Joe Mixon one was just important to mention as well.
Yep.
But hopping into the top 24, let's just get right into it. Again, I'll mention how they're compared to with the ADP, where we both have them and what that averaged out to for us. So yeah, our RB24 coming in there for us is Travion Henderson. I have him down at RB26, but Vinny is pretty bullish on him, having him at RB20, which averaged out to 23. That was where this rankings fell, RB24 for us, which is exactly in line with ADP. Um, Vinny, just because you got him so high, I'd love for you to start by talking about him.
Yeah, I mean, Trayvon's been a guy that since the draft, even before he got drafted to the Patriots, it was a guy I was kept watching the landing spot on, or I was curious to find out who he would go to. But honestly, it didn't matter for me. I think he's just such a talented running back. He can do it all. And the thing for me is I just like kind of see him in the same light as, those sort of like Gibbs and Achan of like coming into the NFL. They're just so they have that extra gear where they can just kick it in. And I think at the end of the day, that's going to show on the field. And I think that gets him on the field as much as possible. And the Patriots really have no choice if they want to win, but to play Travion Henderson. And I think that also the underrated part of his game is his blocking. He's an elite blocking running back. He showed that in college. And so just a guy that could do everything. I just don't see how he doesn't see the field, even if it takes a few weeks, 5, 6 weeks. I think that value will turn in, even if it's a shortened season, just because of how valuable PC is on the field to win football games, and that allows him to score more fantasy points when he's on the field more. So, yeah, I'm really high on Henderson just because of like the elite talent that I think he is.
Yeah, you guys know I'm a little bit lower on him, right? I have him at 26 here, but I'll be honest with you, he's risen up my rankings a little bit. I'm still below ADP on Henderson. That's just because I still believe Ramondre Stevenson's going to have work in this offense. And as a Patriots fan and as a believer that this offense is going to take the step, I still don't know how much that step is, right? The receiving core is not great. Diggs is there. I guess Pop Douglas, Demario Douglas, he's been having a great camp so far. But other than that, like, what is the offense exactly? I know the offensive line, we drafted one, we signed some guys. So that's improving. But honestly, I'm not super bullish to say this is a top 15 unit yet. So as much as I like the improvements we've made on the offense and everything, I'm still just I'm a little hesitant in this offense as a whole. I believe Henderson's an electric player, pass catching capabilities. And honestly, I'm glad he fell into these top 24 for us. I think he's a good name to talk about. I also want to mention the strength of schedule for the Patriots, they're number two. Um, and you know that's important for a running back. If you're up in games, you run the football. So, with the electric player that he is and the fact that they have a really nice schedule, I started rising him up my rankings a little bit. And I think he may continue to rise throughout the offseason, depending on what we hear out of camp, things like that. If it comes out he's the 1A, or even just the guy for the Patriots, he's going to rise up quite a bit. I think he's going to be up above some of these other guys we're about to mention for me. Just because I think with the pass catching capabilities that he has and everything, like he could be something, even if the Patriots aren't the best offense in the world. But yeah, as a rookie talent, I think he's super talented, and I'm really excited to watch him as a Patriots fan. So, I'm hoping the best for him, and I'm really excited to see where this goes.
Yeah, so I just think he's better than at everything than Ramondre. So at some point, I think that
I think he
shows.
is too. Like the fumbling especially, and we
Yeah,
know like even with Mayo as the coach last year, like they just don't really like guys who fumble the football. It's
yeah,
just always been a thing in the Patriots coaching staff. So Vrabel's gonna pull him immediately. Henderson's also a guy who holds on to the football very, very well. So I
yeah,
think that is gonna be the biggest thing for him.
yeah.
But all right, that's our RB24 right there. RB23. Tony Pollard coming in at an average of 22 and a half, just edging out Travion Henderson. I have Pollard up at 20 and Vinny has him down at 25. In terms of ADP, Pollard is 26. So we are above ADP on Tony Pollard by a few spots. Um, Being the bullish one on Pollard, I would love to talk about him here first. Pollard, I'm so in on Pollard. I talked about him in a value episode not too long ago, but I think this is his backfield. Everybody's worried about Tyjae Spears. I'm really not worried about him. I think Pollard is going to be the primary back. We saw him be the primary back and have a lot of touches last year. And I think this offense improves. I think everything for this team improves quite a bit. I think Cam Ward is actually a pretty solid quarterback, and I like where this is trending. So, as the primary rusher for this team too, touchdowns are going to improve. And he had a pretty productive season, even with how bad the offense was last year. And I know I talked about it in past episode before, but his finishes, I'm about to pull it up right here. His finishes in recent years, he's being drafted at his floor. right? He's being drafted at RB 26. He finished at 21 last year, and I think he's going to improve on that season. And then in the previous 2 years in Dallas, he finished at 14 and 8 in 2022. And last year, he had the most attempts he's ever had, the best rushing yard season he's ever had, only 5 touchdowns. He also has pass catching capabilities. Like, I think the touchdowns improve, and I think his season improves, and we're drafting him at his floor. So, I don't think me having him at 20 is far off of even that floor that I just mentioned. So, yeah, I'm pretty bullish on Pollard this year, and I like what the team has done in Tennessee. It's not going to be great, but he's going to get work there. He's the better running back, and just like how Vinny, you believe that Henderson's the better running back and is going to get the work, I feel exactly the same way about Tony Pollard.
Yeah, no, I think we agree for the most part on Tony Pollard. I guess I have him a few spots lower than you do, but like we've said, these 25 to 20, we could see it going either way. You can replace guys in and out. But yeah, I agree with a lot of what you said about Pollard, and I think the Tajay Spears argument is like Tajay Spears is a better pass catcher. Well, like you mentioned, Tony Pollard's a very capable pass catcher. He did it with Dallas. He did a little bit last year with the Titans. So
Yeah,
like you said, I completely agree with you that he's better in every facet than Tajay Spears is. And Spears has had his chance. He just hasn't really jumped on it. Pollard missed a few games last year, and Spears really wasn't all that effective. So, yeah, and I honestly think Pollard as a running back fits a rookie quarterback and especially Cam Ward's type of offense that maybe they possibly want to run. So, um, I feel like he's just a more efficient runner, and that will help a rookie quarterback in a lot of ways. So yeah, I have him at 25, but I can wouldn't be surprised at all if he finishes as a mid RB2 this year. So yeah, I feel like 23 is a good spot for him.
Yeah, I think just to mention too, why I have him above Travion. I know I'm pretty drastically different on the two, but in terms of our consensus rankings, the reason I have Pollard right above him, um, is because I think that I'd be more comfortable with him as my RB2. Travion, I'd like to, he's a rookie. There's a little more weariness there. Like if I draft Pollard as an RB2 and he finished at 21 with the offense that it was last year, like they had the worst point differential in I think team history last year. It was like minus 160, something crazy. And he still got the work that he did. So imagine they win a few games this year. And he had 41 receptions last year. Games are down, they're going to be passing it still. So,
Yep.
yeah, I really like his floor, and I think there's a lot of opportunity for Pollard this year.
Yep.
And yeah, I think it's important. I know ADP's out on him in the top 24. I think both of us are right there saying, "Hey, keep him on your radar." I'm pretty happy with him falling into that top 24 for us as well.
Yep.
Moving on, so right here, RB22. The next three guys, this is going to be the first of a few of these situations right here, where we had a couple guys average out to the same. So right here, 22, 21, and 20 all averaged out to 22. The guy we put the highest, so this is going to happen a couple times in the future. I'll mention it again, but the guy who we have the highest in our consensus rankings is the guy we were both like the most neutral on. The guys we were more split on, we ended up bumping them down a few spots just because if one of us is a lot lower, okay, let's bump that down and factor that in a little bit more rather than, oh, one guy's really bullish because the bullish might be like, oh, this is just a guy I believe in. But if we're more neutral on the same guy, like, okay, we're both right there with him. We're gonna put him a few spots higher. So with that being said, the first guy averaging out to 22 for us is RJ Harvey. I have him at 23. Vinny has him at 21. ADP has him at 25. So we are both again higher on ADP, or higher than ADP on RJ Harvey. Harvey is an interesting one. I mentioned him a long time ago in the rookie hot takes where I think the opportunity is completely there for him to be a top 12 running back. I don't know if that's the case with J.K. Dobbins there, and they're saying Dobbins is the guy now, but Harvey's an electric running back, and he falls into a Sean Payton offense with extreme pass catching capabilities. And, okay, well, Travion Henderson's the same guy. Well, I don't know. Harvey to me, I think falls into a much better situation. That offensive line is top three. The PFF has them ranked number two in the league. So, like, this is just saying, like, this offensive line is really good. They're a good football team to the point they're going to be up in games. The defense might be number one in the league. So, what do you do when you're up in games? You run the ball. I think Harvey's going to get a lot of opportunity. I think there's room for him and Dobbins to succeed. Now, it's not Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara over there. It's J.K. Dobbins and R.J. Harvey, but he had two top 12 running backs with Ingram and Kamara. And I think with that being said, I think there's opportunity for both these guys. And I'm in on Harvey. I think Harvey's electric. He's 24 years old. He's at the prime age to come in and be an NFL starter day one. So yeah, I may have him a few spots lower than Vinny, but I think it's good enough reason for us to have him at RB22 here and talk about him.
Yeah, no, I am also very in on RJ Harvey. I have him at RB 21 in my personal rankings. And yeah, I'm just a huge believer in the capital. They spent a second round pick on him. They reached on him in a lot of people's eyes. And I'm not really buying into the J.K. Dobbins being the guy. Like, sure, I don't really know how people define the guy. Will he get the first carry of week one? Like, is that being the guy? Like, I see it as more of a split, but I see it favoring RJ Harvey as the season continues for sure. I mean, people act like, something happened within the RB room, like an RB got hurt, so they had to bring in Dobbins, or they didn't like what they saw from Harvey, so they had to bring in Dobbins. No, nothing happened. I think that was the plan the whole time that they were going to bring someone else in. It's not like they took a look at Harvey's tape again and were like, oh, never mind. We need to bring another guy in. He can't be the workhorse. Like nothing happened. They just thought they needed another, set of legs in the room. And that's what they did. And J.K. Dobbins, is very injury prone player. It's and he's lost a step in a lot of ways. He doesn't have that breakaway speed that he used to have. So, I mean, I don't know. I see in a lot of ways people kind of overreacting to the J.K. Dobbins signing, and I really think this could be a similar situation as we've talked about with Travion Henderson, Amarian Hampton, who we'll get to as a spoiler, but I see it just being one of those rookie situations where he eventually takes over the backfield completely at some point down the line.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. Dobbins, what is Dobbins going to be? Now, I do believe Dobbins will get work. I
Yeah.
just don't think it's going to be like the situation he had in LA last year. And,
Yeah.
you know,
No.
after he was getting injured, like he came back, he was really inefficient down the stretch. And, he got the carries, but it wasn't that good. Um, and Dobbins, honestly, Sean Payton, like we know Sean Payton by now, he talks up his guys. I think he said something about, oh, Audric Estime is a great running back. Audric Estime is not going to really play this year for the Broncos. Like we
Yeah.
know
Yeah.
that. He had his opportunity last year. I just kind of believe this Dobbins bit being, oh, he's a starter, I think is a little bit of smoke, honestly. I think Harvey's the better back. I think Harvey's gonna end up getting the work and yeah, I think there's going to be some bit of a split. He's not going to be a three down back for them, but
Mhm.
with the work he'll get and everything, I think he's going to be top 24.
Yeah. You don't take a guy in the second round just
Mhm.
to,
Exactly.
not use him at some point in a very effective and like big way for that offense. So yeah, I completely agree that I'm kind of not buying all the noise on Dobbins being the guy that a lot of the reporters are saying.
Yeah. What was that their first pick this year too, or did they have a first rounder?
Um,
Yeah, we'll do a quick.
that's a good question. I believe they had a first rounder.
They,
Uh,
yeah, Jediah Barron.
okay,
They
yeah,
took Barron, corner out of Texas at pick 20.
okay.
Yeah, they
But
went Harvey at pick 60 overall. Like they went very high.
that's heavy capital, especially for running backs. A
Yeah.
lot of like that's heavy capital. So,
Yeah,
um,
also real quick before we move on, but I heard something recently that they really wanted Genty because Genty broke every metric ever, but the guy with the next best metrics was Harvey. And they went and got him because they wanted a guy with good metrics, and that was who they went and got. So I agree with the draft capital being important here.
yep, for sure.
Moving on, RB21. So again, averaging out to 22. We ended up kind of just going consensus here. That's why we got this guy above because David Montgomery comes in here for us. and we are exactly the opposites. I have him at 21 and Vinny has him at 23, the exact opposite of RJ Harvey. Um, Looking at the ADP, he is exactly in line with us, RB 21. Montgomery's an interesting one this year. I think that he's always been touchdown dependent, and he also has the capabilities and the upside of if anything, God forbid, were to happen to Gibbs, this guy is a league winner immediately. This guy is probably a top 8 running back if anything were to happen to Gibbs. So the O line's a little bit worse than it was last year with some retirements, things like that. But, I think David Montgomery is still he's just going to do work. Like, it's a Dan Campbell guy. Get out there, run the ball. It's Sonic and Knuckles. He's Knuckles. And he's just going to run the ball. He's going to score touchdown. I think this offense is still going to be very good. And maybe the touchdowns fall off a little bit for him, but I think they're still going to be there. I'm not loving Montgomery as somebody I'm going out and drafting, but I think it's just too hard to put him lower. Like
Yep.
the guys we've just mentioned. Henderson, there's question marks. He's a rookie. Pollard, Titans offense, that got question marks in itself. RJ Harvey, rookie, question marks. But I think Montgomery is he's a boring pick, but I think it's just too hard to put him any lower because we know what he's going to be. He's going to be productive. And, again, upside, if anything were to happen to Gibbs, it's completely there.
Yeah, those are pretty much my thoughts exactly. It's someone that I'm almost not waiting for a fall off, but like I wouldn't be surprised if it came this year. But based on his current production, like the guy's had 13 and 12 touchdowns in his the past 2 seasons in Detroit. He's a touchdown machine.
Yep.
And I agree. Like I don't see the offense, even with Ben Johnson leaving, I don't see it changing that much. There's still an offense that's going to have a ton of red zone opportunities, and they've shown that they could just score the ball. So there's going to be plenty of opportunities for Gibbs and Montgomery. So yeah, I mean, he's just in a production beast in terms of he's never finished as below an RB1 or RB2 in fantasy. So I mean, yeah, it felt like you said, it's a boring pick a little bit, but it's someone that you can kind of count on to have double digit touchdowns and close to 1,000 yards, which is crazy to say he's an RB2.
Yeah. I mean, tell me what you think about this, but I feel like I would prefer the three guys we just mentioned over him, even though we have him ranked higher.
Yeah, I do agree because I feel like the three guys we just talked about have more upside to finish above him, where Montgomery, I think he just kind of is what he is. Like you said, he's a little touchdown dependent. If he doesn't score a touchdown, you're probably not getting a good week from him. So I like the upside for more opportunity rather than Montgomery's probably could get less opportunity with Gibbs, you know, just being so good that he at some point they're going to have to just let one of them take over if they can't pay both.
Right. I also think this is a complete like build dependent pick right here. Okay, who do you go out of these four guys? Well, if I drafted Devon Achane, who could be very volatile as my RB1, I may opt for Montgomery.
Yeah.
But if I got who else is a rock solid? Like if I got Bijan, the currently ADP number one overall running back. If I got Bijan there, who I know is going to be rock solid, who's also very, very consistent, maybe I'm swinging for the fences on my RB2 and just shooting for upside rather than, I need another guy who's consistent. So I think build always matters, as we talk about in this podcast. But yeah, I think Montgomery, you're gonna get production. And I think it's almost as simple as that. You're gonna get production. It may not be pretty. You're probably banking on a touchdown, but I think it'll still be there for him.
Yeah, I honestly like him thinking about it now as like a zero RB strategy kind of running
Yeah.
back that you can snag in like the sixth, seventh round when you just have, three disgusting wide receivers, maybe a
Yep.
tight end. Like I kind of like him in that sense of like that kind of team build.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that as well. Let's move on to RB20 here. So the third guy who averages out to 22 for us, we both had at 22. And again, because we were both more neutral on him, we decided to put him the highest. That's DeAndre Swift, who ADP also has at 20. with both of us being a little lower than that ADP on him, I think ADP, it's fair to say we feel ADP is a little bullish on him. I think personally, I'm just down on the Bears offense as a whole. I'm really not a believer in Caleb Williams. I need to see him go out there and be productive before actually believing anything. Yes, the offensive line is much improved. They didn't bring anyone in. They were rumored to, so I think it is still Swift's backfield. Like people are hyping up Kyle Monangai, seventh round rookie out of Rutgers. Like I just don't see that. I never see a seventh rounder really having a path to success
Yep.
unless, an injury happens and that's the next guy up. But yeah, I guess like the path is there for him to be a workhorse back. And with the improvements to this offensive line, drafting Luther Burden and Colston Loveland in the offense, Roma Dunze going into year two, Caleb Williams going into year two, Ben Johnson as the head coach. Like there's a lot of upside for this offense as a whole, and Swift fits right into that falling in with the upside. I
Yep.
think I think he's just a volatile player though, and I don't think Swift is a great running back, honestly. I think it's a system play here where, okay, Swift is in the system and it's going to look really good. It's just, okay, how much do you believe in the Chicago Bears offense? I'm personally pretty out on them. I see a step for Roma Dunze. I see DJ Moore still being productive. I see Loveland being pretty good, but Cole Kmet was pretty good too. Luther Burden should be helpful. I truly just don't believe in Caleb Williams. I don't think he was a very good quarterback last year. And I heard something recently, his numbers without pressure, like accuracy was really bad. I'm like, okay, so if this guy is not getting pressured and his accuracy is bad, like, okay, you improve the line, no pressure. His accuracy has to improve in other ways then. So I don't know. I'm a little worried as a whole with this offense, but at the same time, it's really hard to knock the fact that there's a lot of upside there and potential for this team, and the fact that DeAndre Swift could be a three down back, which is kind of crazy to say, but if that happens, production will be there, and RB20 is a great spot for him.
Yeah, for me, it's just like you mentioned. I feel like the picks be or the ring guys ranked behind him. We've said a lot, like a Travion Henry, I just said talent. Like RJ Harvey, there's talent there. Like those are guys that are I really believe are talented. Like you said, I don't. It's not this ranking for me for Swift isn't because of talent. It's strictly because of Ben Johnson and the fact that the only person they brought in to challenge him for the RB job is a seventh round pick and Kyle Manone guy, like you mentioned. So that to me just shows that they are confident in him as the workhorse running back. They do still have Roshan Johnson there, but he's had opportunity to kind of creep into that role, and again, he didn't take it. So, yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's a predicted ascending offense. Give whatever you think about Caleb Williams, a lot of people are in on this offense and them taking a step forward. But yeah, I mean, for me, the ranking is strictly based off of like what Ben Johnson was able to do with his running backs in Detroit and kind of guessing how he transfers that to Chicago.
Mhm. Yeah, and also, like we've said, it's different than for quarterbacks where it's like you kind of have to figure out strength of schedule a little bit differently. With running backs, it's like if you have an easy strength of schedule and you're winning the game, you start running the football. The Bears have the 26th best strength of schedule, which is bad. That's a hard strength of schedule. And if Caleb Williams can't figure it out, they're going to be losing a lot of games and won't be able to run the football. So it's a scary situation. I probably won't be drafting Swift. And if he's being drafted as the RB20 overall, and it's not just based on the rankings, then that's a really scary situation. Also, I'm realizing I've been saying ADP the whole time. I've been going based on fantasy ECR rankings. So it's not ADP. My apologies. This is based on ECR rankings. Yeah, so that's my bad, but this is based on the pros. The pros have him up at 20. So,
Yep.
yeah. Anything else to say about Swift?
Yeah, no, also a guy that I'm not actively looking to draft, but I do see a little bit of upside just based off the
Yeah,
situation. So yeah,
yeah, I agree. Okay. I think this would be a clear tier break for the both of us. We're now in a tier above. Um, RB19. So, we've differed on guys from 20 and below. 19 and above, we didn't have anybody like below these next set of guys that were like, oh, we're so high on this. Like nobody was higher on Swift or Montgomery in these top 19. So, yeah, I guess that's a really poor description of what I was trying to say, but these next set of guys we're pretty unanimous in where it's like this is the next tier of running backs you can start drafting. So RB19 coming in with an average of 18 and a half is James Conner, who I have at 19. Vinny, you have at 18, and I'll correct myself this time. ECR has him at 18 as well. So we're pretty much right in line with him here. You are exactly. I'm one spot lower, and he falls right there, one spot lower for us. Go ahead and talk about James Conner.
Yeah, I would agree with the tier break that you mentioned as well. I just, Connor, his problem for the past few years has been health. And honestly, his whole career, when he's healthy, he's pretty dominant. When he's not, obviously not as dominant. But Connor, for me, like I just saw the fully healthy year almost last year. I think he got a little banged up towards the end of the year last year, but for the most part, he was the workhorse for them all year. He kind of beat out Trey Benson, who was their second round pick last year. There's still some hype coming in around his name this year. But for me, Connor got that extension. He showed his value in the passing game last year too. He's an obvious goal line guy there. So as long as he stays healthy, I feel like this is a good spot for him, and I wouldn't be surprised if he finished above.
Yeah, I completely agree. I pulled up right here. So he spent 4 years now in Arizona, and I'll start with that first year there. He played 15 games, finished at RB5 in PPR. The next 2 years, he only played 13 games, finished at 19 and 18, respectively. And then last year, he played 16 games and finished at 11 in PPR. This guy ran for over 1,000 yards the last 2 years, 8 touchdowns last year, 47 receptions last year, which was almost a career high, and 414 yards, one receiving touchdown. He's also just a very, very productive back, and he's been better in Arizona than he was in Pittsburgh. The one thing I think that keeps him from moving up in rankings in general is because he's now 30 years old. So Trey Benson, okay, what could he be? Could Trey Benson start creeping in? Could it become more of a split? What's this offense going to look like? I really like Connor. I think I'd be very okay with him as my RB2. I think it's going to be primarily him, even if Benson gets some work. But, there's just guys ahead of him where I would just prefer them based on their situations a little bit more, probably based on age a little bit too. James Conner being now 30 years old, it's kind of like, Derrick Henry's been the only one to really, oh, this is his year. He's done. This is his year. Nope. And he's still not done, which is crazy to say going into age 31 season. But I don't know if is Derrick Henry. I really don't. And going into age 30 season, it keeps me a little bit lower than some of these other guys. I think some of this uber elite production he's had will fall off a little bit. Age 30, maybe the injuries come back a little bit. Maybe, he's down to 13 games again and finishes exactly where we're drafting him at 18 or 19. So I think we're ranking him at a perfectly fine spot, and you know what you're getting. But yeah, I guess that's what I got to say about James Conner.
Yeah, honestly, for me, he kind of reminds me of my take on David Montgomery, where like you know what you're gonna get with him. A little touchdown dependent. But I wouldn't be surprised if there was a dip like you mentioned, but at the same time, based on his past production, the situation,
Yeah.
um, you kind of have to put him there. You can't guess that there's gonna be an injury or a dip fully. So yeah, I think he deserves to definitely be in this top 20.
Yeah, definitely. Let's go ahead, move on to RB18 here. We have, with an average of 17, our RB18 is Ken Walker, who I actually have all the way up at 15. Vinny has him down at 19. ECR rankings, he is also 15. So while I'm in line with him, with the pros, Vinny, you're 4 spots lower. So why don't you talk about why you're so much lower on him?
Yeah, I know. I feel like there's a lot of backfields in the NFL where there's like a couple guys and the fantasy community and fans are split on them. And we've talked about a few of those this year. But for me, I am a believer in the talent of Zach Charbonnet. Um, he was so efficient and effective from a fantasy perspective and just a football perspective last year when he got an opportunity when Ken Walker was down. And I just really don't see how the Seahawks and Mike McDonald just ignore that. Like I feel like Charbonnet gets a little bit more involved. I've seen a bunch of stats of like, you know, when Ken Walker's healthy, Charbonnet doesn't play. But I just feel like that can't be the case anymore. Like he's very talented. They spent a second round pick, I believe, on Charbonnet. So the capital is there. So for me, I think that's the, deciding factor in moving him down my range specifically. But yeah, I think I'm just, believer in the other side that could get cut into that work. Not to say Charbonnet could jump into the top 24, but I just think he's going to cut into that work as a whole, and that in turn will affect Ken Walker.
Yeah, and the production hasn't exactly been there. He has played 15 games in 2022 and 2023, his first 2 seasons in the NFL, but he only played 11 last year. He's being talked about as injury prone now.
Yeah,
Um, his rookie season was his best year, finishing at RB18. So, like you're saying, you think Charbonnet creeps into that role a little bit more. Well, it takes away a lot. I think Ken Walker for me is purely like just going in on saying I think this guy is actually a really good running back. I
yeah.
think he was arguably my favorite out of that 2022 class. I think the other guy in that I think it was Brees Hall in that class as well, if I'm not mistaken.
I think you're right. Yep.
And I know people were saying Ken Walker's better than Brees. And, he's right up there with Brees Hall, who I think at this point everybody would say Brees Hall is a better back. Um, I know the injuries are there for Ken Walker, and that does concern me. So, for me to have him at 15, I do feel that's a little bullish. But I think this guy has the abilities. Like he's a solid running back. He can score touchdowns. He had a career high 46 receptions last year, so he can catch the ball as well. I think it's just also feeding into the fact that these offensive coordinators and the coaches this offseason have been saying this guy is special. He can be a 3 down back. He can do it all. They want him to do it all. Also, the fact that they brought in Kubiak, right? I think they brought in Kubiak to be the offensive coordinator. So yeah, they bring in Kubiak because they want to be a run first offense. They don't want Darnold to be throwing the ball all over the place. So even if Charbonnet gets work, in my opinion, I think there's opportunity for both of them. Almost like a Montgomery Gibbs light version. And maybe Charbonnet's more of that, big body, get some carries, but Ken Walker is the electric guy. I just I'm in a position where in order to rank him any higher, I would just need to actually see production and need to see him stay healthy. I
Yep.
think I am ranking him as high as I can go. I think at 15 for me is a little high. And honestly, when we read it out in the consensus, 18 sounds a little bit more fair based on his past production. And even that kind of bakes in what he can be. So I think there is some concerns. I think Charbonnet is a valid concern, as you said, and the injury concerns are real too. So keep those in mind when drafting Ken Walker, but also keep in mind the fact that Ken Walker has a lot of upside. And if he stays healthy, this guy could easily be a top 10 running back.
Yep.
RB17 here, we have with an average of 16 and a half. So we have two guys here averaging 16 and a half. This guy we're a little bit more split on, so we got him 1 spot lower at RB17. That's James Cook, who I have at 18. Vinny has at 15. The pros have him at 16. So we are one spot lower than the pros have him. Vinny, why are you so bullish on James Cook?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't even say that it's, necessarily bullish. I feel I guess it's one spot ahead. But I just, like the fit that he's had with Josh Allen there. I think maybe a little dip, because of the whole contract thing, but I think that'll figure itself out. And then it's another situation where like some people are a big believer in Ray Davis kind of cutting into that workload. I don't see that as much. I think what the Bills want to do, James Cook is kind of the perfect running back for that. He plays off of Josh Allen very well. He's, I guess you could call him a little bit touchdown dependent. He had a massive season last year with
Yeah,
16 touchdowns. So
yeah.
do I think he repeats that? No. But I still think he's good for 10 plus, around that range. And I don't know. I just feel like for the Bills offense, I like the fit with him there. And I do see some upside if he, mixes in more in the receiving game than he has been in the past.
Yeah. I think taking anybody in the Bills offense that can score touchdowns, I think it's smart taking the running back, right? Running backs score touchdowns in good offenses because the good offense gets down to the goal line and punches the ball in, right? I think that's an easy thing to talk about with these teams. That's why Montgomery has scored so many touchdowns. The Lions are a good offense, get down to the goal line. He scores the ball, right? I think that's the same situation with James Cook last year. James Cook also had a tough schedule last year and still was very, very productive. He's an electric running back. I think it's hard to rank him too low. I guess the contract dispute worries me a little bit, just enough where I'm like, okay, I need to, pump the brakes. But I'm also really worried about his snap share because I had him in fantasy last year, and there was
Mm.
a point in time where I was trying to offload him. He peaked at a 61% snap share last year. That was his best, and that was week one. He hovered closer to 55 through week 10. He had 37% of snaps in week 11. They had bye week 12, and he never had more than 46% snap share the rest of the way. He it was just a low snap share. They're using other guys. They're using Ray Davis. They're using Ty Johnson. Ty Johnson actually had more receiving yards than James Cook last year. I just, I think with this snap percentage, he's so touchdown dependent now that the 16 is just such an outlier for him. I can't see that happening again. I'm I was very in on James Cook last year. I thought the touchdowns were going to improve, right? He had two his rookie year, two the year after in 2023. I'm like, oh, they're going to improve. They're going to improve. And they did so much so that I think it's honestly an overcorrection there. And I think it's going to come crashing back down. And I'm just the snap share scares me away the most. I want a guy who I know is going to be on the field. And if James Cook goes out there, has a 40% snap share every game again, and they don't pay him, and he doesn't get these breakaway touchdowns and doesn't score the ball, I think he's going to be super, super disappointing for fantasy. So that's why I'm really concerned about Cook. I won't be drafting him anywhere. But at the same time, like I said to start, you draft the running back in a good offense. This is a Bills offense. They get down to the goal line, it could still be James Cook. So, I'm not completely like run away from this guy forever, but I won't be drafting him, especially at his value.
Yeah, I think the contract definitely would help a lot of people just to show that, the Bills do value him in the offense. But at the end of the day, even if they don't figure out a contract before the year starts, I just think that he's the most talented running back you know, in that offense. So, um, yeah, I think for me, that kind of is enough to be able to say I would draft James Cook. But yeah, it's not necessarily like we've said about everything. It's kind of team build. It's not necessarily someone that I'm seeking out as like a value at all.
Yeah. Yeah. I completely agree. Moving on. We got four more to talk about. Number 16 for us, averaging out to 16 and a half as well. But we're a little more neutral on him is Chuba Hubbard. I have him at 16. Vinny has him at 17. The pros have him at 17. So again, we're kind of right there. Um, Chuba Hubbard's an interesting one. I think he was very, very good last year and he got a lot of work. They bring in Dowdle, so that raises concerns for some people. I think Chuba's going to get a lot of work again. I really do. And I'm starting to buy into this Panthers offense taking a jump quite a bit. And especially with as bad as their defense is, I kind of buy into this offense a little bit. And I wouldn't mind grabbing a piece of Chuba Hubbard. So yeah, I just think this is the type of guy who, even if Rico mixes in every once in a while, I think he's going to be a three down back. I think he's going to get a ton of work. I think his snap share is going to be super high, and I think production will come with that. And yeah, he had a great year last year. He's a very good running back. So I think that's kind of why I'm filling him in here. And, like we're talking about today, 24 to 13, these are your RB2s. I would be super, super happy with Chuba Hubbard as an RB2 for me.
Yeah, I think this is a situation where like you can talk about past production in past seasons, last season, but for me, the big thing that sticks out is the extension that they gave him and at the point and where they did. And we've talked about it in the past, but the fact that, they still had Jonathan Brooks coming back from an injury and then they paid Chuba Hubbard a 4-year contract extension, that just sticks out to me. So I mean, it's a guy that I think they believe in, and with Brooks obviously being out the whole year, this is a kind of his first chance where there's no one at his doorstep trying to take his job. It's all him, and like you mentioned, it's an ascending offense. So, yeah, I really in on Chuba Hubbard this year.
Yeah, and I think it's important to point out too, Rico's a pretty solid running back. He had over 1,000 yards last year. But I think my counter argument to that is that who else would be on that team if it weren't for them bringing in Rico and it was just super cheap
Exactly.
deal? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like, how could you not bring in a guy who's a good player on as cheap a deal as it was? I
Yeah.
think they're gonna mix him in, but I know Chuba's their guy. Like,
Yeah.
it's written all over the wall. Like you said, that extension was huge, and I think they spent capital on Brooks because they weren't sure Chuba's the guy. Well, Chuba proved he's the guy so much so they extended him mid-season. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think Chuba we're both pretty in on, and I think this is a pretty good spot for him here at RB16. RB15. Again, we're about to have two guys who average 14 and a half for us. So this is the first one because we're the most split on. Um, this is Omarion Hampton, who I'm down a little bit. I have him at 17, but Vinny's got him all the way up at 12. In comparison to the pros, we're both higher than the pros. The pros have him at 19. So, yeah, with you being 7 spots higher than the pros, Vinny, go ahead and start talking about him.
Yeah. Honestly, the pros rankings surprises me a little bit. Just the fact that they have Travion at 24 and Hampton only at 19. I mean, the capital alone boosts him for me. He's a first round running back to a team that loves to run the ball. And I was on Hampton before this whole Najee news came out with the firework incident in his eye. But I mean, they don't know if Najee is going to even be able to start the season. So I mean, he's not practicing right now. There's really no updates coming with that. So I mean, if we get a chance to have Hampton as, the lone running back on week one, I might even bump him up my rankings into the top 10. I mean, this guy is super talented. Obviously, the one big glaring thing is Najee in that offense. They like to run the ball. They had Gus Edwards last year with J.K. Dobbins. They used them both. So I mean, I don't know. I just love the upside in this offense. It's a very situational based pick for me. Um, but the fact that, they spent first round capital on him, it's Jim Harbaugh. Um, it's I'm blanking. It's the Ravens OC. I'm blanking on his name, or the old Ravens OC. But
Um,
yeah, but he loved to run the ball too. He always has loved to run the ball. So yeah, for me, it's just like there's always that one or a couple few rookie RBs every year. Obviously, Gentry's going to be one of them, but for me, the next man up is Hampton, and I really see him creep into this top 12, which is why I have him so high.
yeah, the coordinator, by the way, I just looked it up, Greg Roman.
Greg Roman, yep.
Uh, yeah, we did, what was it, a couple of weeks ago, who would you rather have? And we talked about Hampton because it was like, okay, we're going over all these names. Who would you rather have? You said you'd want him over most of the guys. I said I'd rather the other guy mostly. I think the reason why I was so low on him, and again, let me be clear, I'm 5 spots lower than Vinny, um, but I'm still 2 spots higher than the pros. And
Yeah.
that also puts him at an average of RB 15 for us, right? So he's our RB 15, which is 4 spots higher than the pros. He's above Chuba Hubbard. He's above James Cook, Ken Walker, James Conner. Like he's above some big time names. And I think personally, I have Chuba above him. But I think I like Hampton a lot to take over sooner than expected. And this team being a team that likes to run the ball, as you said, I think that's huge. I like Najee and I like the fact that they signed him. But what's going on with his eye? Nobody's even seen it. Like nobody knows what the injury is. Is it still
Yep.
there? We don't know.
Yep.
So it's like honestly, it's a 1 year deal, and I thought the 1 year deal was okay. Let Najee run like crazy into the ground, and now it's starting to look like that 1 year deal could be completely expendable, where he's completely just a backup. It's a new offense for him too. So if
Yep.
he's not there in camp, that's a huge worry of mine. And I'm starting to get in a little bit more on Hampton, and they
Yep.
spent first round capital on him. Like it's just starting to look like this situation is becoming his, and it's like okay. Well, we have Genty, super, super high. So, how low can we go on Hampton? So, I don't think I want to bump him too high, but yeah, it's turning into a nice situation the longer we don't hear about Najee Harris.
Yep.
All right, final two for tonight. 14, the guy who was tied with Hampton, actually, but we put it a little bit higher or 1 spot higher just because, again, we were more neutral, a little bit closer in our rankings on him. And this is Brees Hall, who I have at 13, Vinny has at 16, and the pros have at 13. So we're 1 spot lower in our consensus ranking at 14 than the pros. Um, yeah, Vinny, if you don't mind, I'd love to jump in on Brees because Brees is one of those guys where I'm so tempted to put him even higher. Like part of me wants to put him up at RB7. Another part of me wants to put him down at like RB16. Like I don't know where to
Yeah.
rank him. And I'm gonna pull up his stats real quick and start explaining why in just 1 second. But I think the thing that's kind of putting me more in this neutral spot for him is the fact that it's the Jets. It's a new head coach. It's just they bring in guys, oh, they're going to be amazing, and then it's like they fall off. So the last 2 years, this is what I really want to talk about. The last 2 years, Brees finished at RB2, which is why he was going in the first round last year, and then he finished at RB16 last year. So it was like, oh wow, this guy sucked. He fell off. The attempts were almost identical. He had 14 less last year. He had about 80 yards less last year. They had 5 touchdowns each year. His receptions, though, were down quite a bit. And this is why I think it's interesting to talk about. He had 76 receptions 2 years ago, 591 yards, and 4 touchdowns. Last year, he had 57 receptions. That's what, 19 less? 483 yards, so still pretty decent yardage, and only 3 touchdowns. So he was, doing kind of the same thing in the rushing department. He was doing better on the yards per catch, had one less touchdown on almost 20 less receptions, and everybody's writing him off because Justin Fields doesn't like to check down the ball and Aaron Rodgers does. Well, actually, believe it or not, Justin Fields does check down the ball. And even if he goes up 10 catches, half of that, well, if we split the difference then between 2 and 16, because really the big difference between his stats was those receptions, well, then he's finishing at what? RB9. And I think that's a pretty solid season for him. So I like this kind of spot where he's going. I'm interested in Brees Hall. Um, it's just the fact that it's the Jets. And, I don't think they're going to be a good offense. I don't think this team is going to be down at the goal line a lot for him to get these touchdown opportunities. So I kind of anticipate the touchdowns being pretty similar. maybe five rushing, maybe three receiving. But
Yeah.
I think overall those receiving numbers could improve. And that's why I think, going from 16 to, we're drafting him at 13, that's kind of a nice spot to be able to get him.
Yeah. Yeah, like you said, he's a super polarizing player for me as well. He was super difficult to rank. And at the end of the day, like you mentioned, to me it just kind of came my ranking was because of the situation. Like Aaron Glenn just seems like a guy that seems like one of those coaches that if you weren't with him when he showed up, then he doesn't really owe you anything. That's kind of the mentality he seemed to have. So I don't really think he thinks he owes Breece Hall anything, even though there was first round cap, or I mean, second round capital with him. He had that really good year a couple of years ago, but there's just been no commitment from him that it's not what I just want to hear like he's the guy. Like, and Aaron Glenn just refuses to say something like that. So I do like, on the other hand, a Breece's kind of mindset too of like they don't owe me anything. So he knows that he just has to go out and produce. He did make a comment of like, I'm not expecting a contract extension because I haven't earned it yet. Like, I like that type of comment from him, and I do believe he's a very talented player. But I just don't like, at the end of the day, you need the commitment from the team and the head coach to kind of be the ones that are going to set up plays to give him the ball. And with that not really being there, it just does kind of scare me. But like you said, if it's all there and Aaron Glenn turns out to love Breece Hall and give him the ball a ton, he could definitely finish in that top 10 and creep towards that seven mark that you mentioned. So he's just super polarizing. It was someone that I kept looking at, like you mentioned, do I go higher? Do I go lower? And I made the decision to go lower. But I'm not super confident in that. So I'm not, he's a guy I'm excited to kind of watch, and he's definitely not off my draft boards at all.
Yeah, I think just like you said, that quote where he's like willing to go out and prove it. I'm also a little concerned because he said, like, when he was asked about why he hasn't gotten a contract extension, he goes, "I'm not their guy." And I think
Did you
that's
say that? Okay.
yeah, I think that's
Huh.
really concerning because if he knows that, this dude can't wait to get out. I don't know when his contract is up. I don't, but
Yeah,
yeah, like. It's probably after this year, actually, right?
I
This
think
would
it
be year
is.
four. So,
Yeah,
I think he's gonna leave. And
yeah,
if that's the situation, if they make it a big split too, like he's gone. And then it's gonna be just a disaster for him this year. So I think like just that range of outcomes that it's so wide for him. Like he could
yeah,
finish back up at two for all we know, but he could also finish down at like 24 if it's a split. So I
yeah,
think somewhere in the middle, where we have him, it's not a bad spot. Keep your eyes out for camp notes because if they can come out and say he's the guy, huge. Start looking at him as more towards that upper end rather than lower. So,
yeah,
all right, last guy for today. RB13, just edging out Breece Hall with an average of 14. Alvin Kamara, who we both have at 14. So do the pros. We are right there with them. Um, I think we're kind of in that range where it's like, it's tough to get too far away from the pros at this point. And ADP and everything. Kamara, you know, Kamara was another one where I was tempted. I have Brees one spot higher, but I was tempted to put Kamara higher myself. I guess this is just another situation where we know the guy can do work. I think they're just like Brees, super capable pass catcher, and Kamara is probably one of the best in the league, if not the best. Um, well, it's probably McCaffrey, but Kamara's right up there. And I think it's just another situation where I hate the offense. They're saying Tyler Shuck's not even doing well in camp. Like, is he even gonna start then for them at quarterback? Like that offense is I think the Saints might win a game this year. Like they're that bad. So I'm just really worried what the opportunity could be for him. Like check downs, I'm sure he'll feed off of. But the rest of it, I'm really worried. But, you can't rank him any lower because even last year he finished at 9. He hasn't finished any lower than 16 in PPR in his career, which has been now eight years in the NFL.
yeah.
Um, So it's really hard to rank him low. He had his most rushing yards last year, um, 6 touchdowns, which is not great for, considering what else he's been able to do in his career. 68 receptions, 543 yards, only 2 receiving touchdowns. Like there's opportunity for him to improve on the receiving touchdowns, and those numbers could still be there, right? 540 yards, 68 receptions. I think that's doable. I think though 6 rushing touchdowns, 950 rushing yards, I think that's almost going to be a reach this year. I really do. I think it's going to fall closer to 800. He's also 30 years old.
Yep.
And I think if I'm not wrong, I think he was banged up towards the end of last season. Yeah, he was. He
He
was
missed
banged
the
up at the
games.
very end. Yeah, which that's concerning. So, you gotta consider these when drafting Kamara. I just don't want a piece of the Saints offense. It really boils down to that. So I don't know if I'll be drafting Kamara unless he falls because he still has a very, very high floor. It's just, factor in the age and the fact that the Saints are terrible and I think are the worst team in the league. So, take those into consideration.
Yeah, no, Kamara was a guy that, I did end up putting at 14, but I was very close to putting him higher. Like, I honestly
Yeah, me
had
too.
him in that, close to 10 range. Like, and I was thinking about it, and he ended up just kind of other guys edging him out. But he just seems to be a guy that he's based on last year, just QB proof and offense proof. Like, he just does what he does. Like you mentioned, an elite pass catcher. And honestly, the coach last year, Dennis Allen, was just pretty incompetent. Like everyone knew he was one of the worst coaches in the NFL. And then they do have Kellen Moore coming in, who is an offensive
Yeah,
mind. And I do believe in, coming off of the season with the Eagles that they just had, that like he's a guy that knows that, like you said, they're not going to be a good team. They're not going to be a very elite offense or effective offense in that at all. So, but I do think he knows that in order to attempt to win games, you have to get the ball to your best player. And so I think the obvious best player on their offense is Alvin Kamara. So the focal point's going to be him. The offense is going to run through him. So as long as he's healthy, I mean, I could see another top 10 year out of him. I mean, he was RB9 last year and missed the last 3 games of the season. So, I mean, yeah, I don't know. Like, Kamara just to me, is a guy that I'm kind of looking to draft. I just think he's gonna produce no matter what the situation is, and he's proven to do that. So, yeah, I do kind of think that Kamara is a guy that I'm definitely in on. But it depends on, where he's at in the draft and the team as well.
yeah, I completely agree with that last sentence because I think I won't say I'm out, but it's tough to draft a guy from a bad offense when there's other guys, I guess, who are also more exciting around him. So,
I,
um,
I also
goes
will
down to-
say with Kamara, I mean, I know we obviously age brings in the idea of potential injury, but he's been consistently healthy throughout his career.
yeah,
I mean,
oh
there's
yeah,
been like, with the 16 game seasons, but he's played above 13 games in his career every year. So, I
every
mean,
yeah,
that's encouraging. But like you mentioned, when you get into that age 30 season, especially as a running back, you never know. But he does kind of seem to be one of those unicorns, like a Derrick Henry, that they're just going to play at their elite level until they go out. So,
yeah.
but yeah.
It's also important to mention there's I think no other runner, Kendre Miller, and he had opportunity at the end of last year and sucked awful. And
Yeah,
I think they have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, but we know what he is
they
at this
they
point.
did they did just draft Devin Neal. I think he was like a
Oh,
fourth rounder,
no,
but
I'm pretty sure he went in the seventh.
or did he? Okay,
Yeah,
but yeah,
well, he was
that's the
projected. He was projected to be possibly like a fourth or higher pick. He went in the sixth. So
okay, six.
he
Okay,
was, yeah,
so
he fell a bit. So I don't know if he'll
yeah,
be anything,
not
especially
much,
here.
especially for Kamara. No
Yeah,
competition there.
yeah. But yeah, we'll end it there. We got top 12 coming to you soon. But there you go. There's our 24 through 13 running backs. Yeah, again, we got top 12 coming to you soon. So be on the lookout for that. There's some exciting names to talk about in there. Where are we compared to the pros? And we agree on some of these guys too. So that should be fun to talk about as well. But yeah, thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll see you in the next episode.
Peace.